Hello and welcome back to NPC, that stands for Next Portable Console, the show about the games we take with us. I am your returning co-host, Federico, and I'm so happy to be back, and I'm joined by Mr. Brendon Bigley. Hello, Brendon.
Hello, I'm so glad you're back. Also, welcome, and hello to everybody.
And we're also joined by John Voorhees. Hello, John.
Hey, everybody. I'm doing really well. Good to see everybody, and it's great to be back with both of you today.
It's the three of us. I've had finally a normal week, been playing some games, finally also, and I had to take care of my dogs last week, but it's all good, it's all fine.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. We have some news to cover, and also I'm bringing a bit of a topic this week to the show, which I didn't know until I sat down this morning to finalize our document, that it's also somewhat related to an experience that Brendon wants to discuss. So
Yes.
we'll talk about that later. First, John, I think you wanted to know my input about something that you guys discussed last week.
Yes. We talked about the Xiaomi Pad Mini, which is a very good-looking tablet, and given that you've been using the Legion Go now or the Legion Tab for what was it, like a year now? I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting movement in terms of Android tablets. I think that one looks really nice. I don't think there's enough reason for me right now to say, well, I'm going to stop using the Legion Tab and get the Xiaomi tablet instead. But I think I am fascinated by Xiaomi as sort of like, what if AYN, but making like tablets and phones, like sort of like that premium aesthetic, sort of pushing the boundaries of Android performance. I think that tablet looks really nice. I am still very partial to the Legion Tab because of the screen and because of the accessories that you can get for that device. I have been using Game Hub, which we discussed a couple of weeks ago on the show, for Steam emulation on Android. And Game Hub received a major update a couple of weeks ago to version 5.1. Right after Hollow Knight Silksong came out, they started issuing these software updates to optimize for Silksong. And in the process, they released this major update to version 5.1 that fixes a lot of issues with Game Hub. I've been using that with the Legion Tab and both my Razer Ultra Kishi controller and what's it called? The controller that Lenovo did that kind of looks like an ROG Ally that I ordered from China. The one where you put the tablet inside.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it, but that's like an official tablet.
Yeah, the official tablet. Yeah, I've been using that one again, and it's so nice with Game Hub. So I think that Xiaomi tablet looks real nice. I think I'm perfectly fine for at least another year with my Legion Tab. That conversation may change when I can get a sub $500 tablet with an 8 Elite system on a chip. Now that's going to be interesting because there's been also some movement on the Elite front this past week when it comes to drivers. We are starting to see like the very high end of emulation, like for example, Nintendo Switch emulation being very optimized for the Elite chipsets. So that's gonna be one of the trends for 2026. That high-end emulation, including Windows, that we discussed a while back. Like if the trend for this year was gonna be two-screen devices, which we sort of predicted last year, I am convinced that next year will be taking a look at the Elite performance and optimizing for Windows and Nintendo Switch. Like it or not, it's a thing that people do.
Federico, what do you make of all the controversy surrounding Game Hub? I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit. There's a lot of tracking going on in the code in terms of location and data that's being sucked up by the company. I haven't looked into it in a lot of detail myself. I don't worry about it personally a whole lot, mainly because I'm using these handhelds to play games. I don't really have a lot of personal information on them, but
unfortunately, my rule of thumb is that whenever possible, if you have a Google account, or like just create an account that is dedicated to signing up for these services, right? Yeah. Like don't connect your primary Google account or your work Google account for that matter when signing up for these things. I always live, because I've been online for the majority of my life. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I live under the assumption that I'm always being tracked somehow. There's always like a data breach is always behind the corner. And I know that it's not ideal. I'm just being pragmatic. So my recommendation would be skeptical, but also what's the other outcome that I don't use GameHub? Because there are, like, it does work. It does work. Is it creepy? Maybe. Am I skilled enough to know exactly, like, poke around the code, the source code of the thing, and like know exactly what's going on? No, but I'm going to connect like a random account, and I'm just going to play my Steam games on Android, and it works. So I try not to worry about it too much.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, actually, to use a kind of throwaway Google account. That's not something that I have always done in the past, but I do more nowadays because it's for that exact reason, because so many things want you to sign up using a Google account these days.
I set up a secondary Google account for this kind of stuff like years and years ago, and I haven't really looked back. I kind of am with you a little bit, Federico, on it, though, where it's like, what's the worst that can happen when tracking like me playing Hades 2 on like an Android device? Like, I don't, I would feel very differently if it was, like a browser and it was everything that I was doing, or something that involved like payment processing. I would feel very differently about. But just linking to my Steam account, it's like, okay, it'll be all right.
I want to discuss a couple of reviews that have come out over the past few days. The first one is our friend Russ at Green Core reviewing the Legion Go 2. And it's pretty much going down as we expected, in that it is an incredible piece of gear, great display. They have improved upon a whole bunch of things from the Legion Go 1. But boy, is it expensive. And also, is like the performance bump compared to the Legion Go 1, does it really justify upgrading and spending, $1,500 or something to get a Legion Go 2?
Yeah. It's like $1,400. It's basically double the price for maybe 20% improvement in performance. It's kind of what it comes down to. Plus
and it looks and feels a little bit nicer to hold.
Yes.
Exactly. And has a better screen.
Yeah.
I mean, screen looks great.
Yeah.
The controllers look great.
It seems like maybe the best handheld you can buy, technically, in a lot of ways, but also, it's double the price of one that's like not that much worse.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, if you have like, and maybe this is a little unpopular, but if you have $1,400, $1,500 to spend, right?
Yeah.
That obviously, I mean, I don't want to run financial calculations for people, but if you have that sort of budget, right?
Yeah.
I would advise, maybe, if you really want to live at the bleeding edge of performance of handhelds, maybe save for a couple extra months and actually consider a Strix Halo handheld at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we are talking between, like, that fork between 1,500 and 2,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe save for 2 more months, 3 more months, and get a GPD Win 5. Like, that's what I would say, because at that point you get you are in a completely different ballpark of performance. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I looked at this. I watched that review, and I really like the Legion Go, and this looks like a really nice upgrade, but for twice the price, and it's quite a bit heavier too. There's just like no way I could justify that to myself. It was hard enough justifying to myself financially getting the original Legion Go, let alone the Legion Go 2. And that was at least partially decided on the fact that we were doing this show, and I wanted to have it for that reason. That was at least part of my excuse. There's just no way that I would get the 2, though.
Yeah, there are a lot of deal breakers with the Legion Go 2 for me. I mean, first and foremost, I wasn't a huge fan of the first Legion Go,
right.
But I mean, even just it being heavier would be enough for me to be like, I don't think so. Because the fact that I spent all my testing time with the Legion Go, like having it propped up on the back rest of the couch because I didn't feel comfortable holding it, was like immediately a no for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's notable that Lenovo is one of the only companies releasing like a generation 2 handheld right now. I think pretty much every other company has realized that now is not the time, and that next year is probably going to be the time.
Right.
Just in terms of like chip performance, which we've talked about many times on the show, but like this wave of chips that released this year, the Z2 Extreme in particular, is like, as you said, like a 20% increase over last year. It's like not nothing, to be clear, but it's not enough to say like now we're in next generation mode.
Right.
So I think, you know, for as much as we've clowned on it, the Xbox ROG Ally being like a weird in between kind of weirdly makes more sense for this year than just saying like here's the ROG Ally 2.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it does make more sense because at the very least, you're getting. I mean, it's gonna be more affordable than a Lenovo Legion Go 2, and you're gonna get the Xbox Handheld UI. So at the very least, you're getting something different, something a little more special than say, well, it's just a spec bump and it's still running vanilla Windows 11 and it costs more and you know, it looks similar to the Legion Go 1, but it's 20% faster. I don't know. However, very different feelings about the first impressions and the reviews that are coming out for the AYN Thor. This device, I think the more videos I watch, so there's a first impression video by Russell Retro Game Core and also a review by Joey's Retro Handhelds that I watched last night. This is shaping up to be potentially my handheld of the year if it goes well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think, and especially having watched the Joey video,
Yeah.
man, that
It looks
performance,
so good.
It looks so good. the two AMOLED displays, the fact that the DS and 3DS emulator community sort of rallying together to optimize for this new wave of two-screen devices. Mm-hmm. Seeing the videos of Azahar, the 3DS emulator, running in 4X on an OLED display on a clamshell device that looks great. Maybe the shoulder buttons aren't that ideal. That's really the only complaint that I've seen so far.
They also weren't on the DS or the 3DS, so
right. So
okay.
Whatever. I don't know. This is shipping in about a week, I think, or at least they're starting to ship that device
Boy,
next
I hope
week.
so. I'm looking
something like that.
I'm dying to get mine.
And like I forgot about the fact that it's gonna have a USB-C video out. So there's also potential for using this with XR glasses, for example. If you want to use something like a PSP emulator with your X-Real or your Viture glasses, there's going to be like there was a point in the Joey review where he was playing Final Fantasy VII on PSP while having the walkthrough in the bottom screen for Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
Like, or just, you know,
that really speaks to me, the ability to do that kind of thing.
Totally unhealthy behavior, but like, what if you could put Blue Sky or Mastodon on the bottom screen and doom scroll while also playing something like, I don't know, Mega Bonk on Game Hub on the top screen, or maybe have YouTube or a podcast player on one side. Like, I don't know, man. It looks so great.
It could be the ultimate brain rot machine, definitely, if you want it to be. The thing that I really liked about Joey's video in particular was he kind of opens it by setting the playing field, which is like every once in a while in this hobby, and this is the thing we've talked about on this show a lot, every once in a while in this hobby, there is a handheld that feels like kind of the fulcrum point around which everything revolves. Yep. It's like something comes out and it's so good. This company just completely nails it that everyone is like, okay, this is the device that we're all kind of thinking about and caring about for a little bit.
Yep.
Every other manufacturer tries to figure out how it was successful, and they make their own offshoots and whatever. But it's always the company that like innovates and pushes the envelope a little bit that really kind of like settles themselves into being like, this is another one of those legendary devices. And we've done the show long enough at this point where we've been able to talk about a couple of those, and there are a couple that came before this. But the thing that I was thinking about while watching that video is like, it's frequently whenever AYN does anything is one of those devices. You know, like every once in a while, AYN will release a new device and everyone's just like, yeah, that's the one, man. Like the Odin 2 was that. The Odin 1 was also that for a lot of people. But the Odin 2 even more so. I would say, like, you know, the Mini was here and there, but the Portal definitely, like once the Portal came out, suddenly the expectation was OLED needs to be on everything.
Yep.
Like people were not going back from OLED after the Portal came out.
Right.
And I just feel like the Thor is another one of those. Like the Thor just feels like you can kind of feel it in the air that it's one of those devices again.
Yeah, you can. And you can also tell that they've really thought through the software pretty carefully, that there's a lot of aspects baked into their software that makes it easier to use two screens. It's not perfect, and I think Joey's review does a good job of pointing out where the shortcomings are there. But it's also just coming out, it's 1.0. I think I'm excited about it. I was glad to see that they'd at least been kind of thoughtful about how they handled the software.
Yeah. He does mention the latency on 3DS in particular.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's noticeable in some instances, but in no way does it impact enjoyment
Gameplay,
or feeling
right.
like he was, succeeding at whatever game he was playing, which I think is the most important thing.
Right.
Because I'm not really a person who notices input latency latency that much.
Neither
with the
do I.
specific exception of playing Silksong at this setup versus playing it on my TV, and I have two different Switch docks, and for some reason I am terrible at Silksong when I'm playing it on the TV in my living room, and great at it when I'm playing it here. Anyway, I'm not too concerned about that. And it seems like also from both Russ and Joey's videos, like, there's a lot of pre-controversy, I would say, around the hinge.
Yeah.
And both of them are like, hey, if it breaks, that's going to be messed up. But at the moment, it seems fine, and like the design is fine, and it has the improvements that the Retroid Pocket Flip 2 new revision has. Like, it seems like it's probably going to be okay.
Yeah, you really can't call that one either way. I mean, you can't just look at a hinge and say it's going to break. I mean, at least
For the people who are nervous about it, don't pre-order the Thor. Wait 2 months and then see if they start breaking, or if one colorway specifically starts breaking more than the other ones.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we think this has the juice to be the all-in-one device?
It's going to be for me, I think. I feel pretty confident that this thing is going to be, because as soon as I have DS and 3DS in a console in a way that feels fine, the only thing you really need is like a 16:9 screen to run everything else, which this has. And I don't know.
It's got Wi-Fi 7. It's got a great chipset. It's got Bluetooth. Is it 5.3 or 5.4? I think it's 5.3.
Yeah.
It's got what you need to play everything from Android games to streaming to emulation.
You have an excellent chipset that is a known quantity at this point. Great driver support.
Yep.
Lots of performance headroom. You can do Game Hub. You can do streaming thanks to Wi-Fi 7. You have the two screens, so DS and 3DS are sort of like solved as an issue. You have 16:9 AMOLED, clamshell, so you don't have to worry about protection that much. I think it's going to be interesting for me because I'm also on pre-order for the Odin 3, and that one I got specifically with the idea of this is going to be my Windows emulation machine.
Right.
So I think it's going to be interesting for me to because I feel like this is also going to be my all-in-one non-Switch, non-Steam Deck device. Sort of try and consolidate, I guess is what I'm trying to say. A lot of emulation here and streaming on this one. But I will run some tests when the Odin 3 is here.
Yeah. Which model of the Thor did you guys get? I got the Pro.
The Pro.
Yeah, I got the Pro too.
I got the Pro for the Thor and the, what's it called, the Ultra or the Max?
No, Max, I think.
Max for the Odin 3. Yeah. So
I think my bigger question about the Thor is, you're asking, does it have the juice to be the all-in-one? My question is, does it have the juice to move the needle on the immediate recommendations in every comment section that ask this question? Like, should I get an emulation handheld, or should I just play this on original hardware? And I feel like 9 times out of 10, the answer will always be original hardware, realistically, especially while the price is like low enough. But I'm wondering if over time, as original hardware starts to deprecate and get worse and become harder to find and more expensive to find, I feel like being able to play everything you would want at a much higher resolution, have everything loaded onto an SD card, and then have access to everything else you would want to play, outside of DS and 3DS is really interesting. And I think one thing that Russ tested out in another video that I'm interested to test out too is the way styluses work on this, like
Yes.
for the games that require it. Because I
Yep.
think in a lot of ways, like that's actually the disconnect is the different touchscreen technologies between the original hardware and this. I have 2 styluses coming in the mail at the moment, 2 different kinds of stylus, which I'm excited to try out both and see if either of them work.
I have some really old ones from back in the day that I've got to
Really?
that I've kept for some reason that I'm going to try with it. And I'm really curious to see what kind of comes out as being the most the most popular one. We'll see. I do think this has the potential to be the tipping point for a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but I do think it has the potential to be the tipping point on original hardware versus using the Thor. For me, I think it has a lot of potential to be the tipping point.
Me too. Yeah. And I mean, look, it's going to be twice as expensive at least as getting a original hardware Nintendo DS. You know? 3DS, calculus is a little different, but still, like, it's going to be significantly more expensive. The question is, are those upgrades worth it to you? And is the longevity of the thing worth it to you?
Right.
Which I think is kind of the more important thing to me, is like having everything in one place is helpful. And also knowing that it'll probably last longer than my DS Lite and my new 3DS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, what's going on with the epilogue operator?
The epilogue operator. This is just something I ran across in their very quiet subreddit, which is that it's possible to set up Steam Deck Play to set it up on a Steam Deck. So you have to go into desktop mode, install the epilogue operator software, which is called Playback, and you have to then boot into the desktop mode every time you want to use the epilogue. And I'm not sure if I really would want to play my games this way, but I think it's kind of cool that you can do it. So I just thought I'd bring it up in case anybody wants to fiddle around in desktop mode with an epilogue, because it's I think their software is good. I love my epilogue, but GB operator. So you can use it with the Steam Deck too in Linux mode.
That is cool.
Nice. All
That is
right.
cool.
We have, well, John, I think, has some thoughts on the iPhone 17 Pro when it comes to gaming. You linked on Mac Stories this week a video by Digital Foundry. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I'll talk about this a little bit more on XL too, because I've been messing around with some of what they were doing at Digital Foundry myself. And what's interesting about this video, I mean, they always do a great deep dive on the really technical side of things. And what they did is they did side-by-side comparisons of an iPhone 13 Pro, 15 Pro, and 17 Pro.
Okay,
Now,
so every other generation.
Every other generation. So it wasn't like 16 to 17. It was, 13, 15, 17. So 2 years ago was the 15. And what was interesting about the results is just how much additional performance the performance boost they saw on the 17, given that it's only been a couple years since the 15. And it's down to a few things. I mean, part of it is improvements to the chip, but it's also the new thermals that they've, and that to me is the most interesting thing, that, Apple went from titanium to aluminum, and they added a vapor chamber to the 17 Pro, which also helps dissipate heat. And I've noticed it having the 17 Pro that it gets hot when it's really cooking, when it's really going, but that heat does kind of spread further in the case, which helps keep those chips running faster for longer. And so they did a bunch of benchmarks, and the benchmarks showed a lot of performance improvements, but they also did a bunch of different real-world tests using games like Death Stranding, Resident Evil Village, what else? Assassin's Creed, I think it was and a bunch of different things. And in real-world examples like that, they were getting much more stable frame rates. Death Stranding is still kind of like, can't really go above 30 frames per second on an iPhone, but like Resident Evil Village was getting significantly higher frame rates and a lot more stable frame rates and better graphics overall than you would get on a 15 Pro or a 13. And I thought that was just, I mean, to me, this is like, it kind of feels like the Pro line of phones may have finally kind of tipped into that territory where these kind of big AAA type games actually do run respectably well. They're doing a lot of upscaling and stuff to make this work, and they've improved the caching and other things with the GPU to the point where you get a pretty good experience out of it. And I spent some time, I downloaded all those games.
Of course.
And started playing them myself a little bit, going through some of the early stages of those games. And yeah, it's significantly better than when I tried. I remember when Resident Evil Village came out a couple of years ago, I think it was alongside the 15 on iOS, that it was just not a very good experience. I mean, it was very stuttery. It slowed down a lot. There was a lot of macro blocking and stuff like that. And this looks really good.
Yeah. I feel you, Federico. You and I are like loading the same thought in the chamber. I could tell.
You go.
Tell me why I shouldn't be so enthusiastic.
No, be enthusiastic. It's cool that it's possible. It's cool that it's possible. And it's cool that like the thing that Apple promised 2 years ago is coming to fruition.
Yeah, no, I know.
But I just feel like, and as we've talked about, like there are these waves of Apple caring about video games, right? And we got that specific wave where Capcom was like, okay, if you put up the money, we'll port all these Resident Evil games here.
Yep.
Ubisoft did the same thing with Assassin's Creed. Kojima Studios did it with Death Stranding. And like, when's the next time we're going to see a game like that launch on the iPhone? And even then, when that happens, is that game going to then be too graphically intensive to run as well as the ones that came out a couple of years ago that you're playing now?
It's a fair point. It's absolutely a fair point. These are no longer cutting edge current games.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, look, hey, Resident Evil Village, that's a game I have played through like 3 times and will probably play through again this year for Halloween. But I wonder when the next time Apple decides to care is.
The thing to me that I think is interesting from Apple's perspective is, what were they thinking releasing these 2 years ago? Because I feel like perhaps they don't have the perspective on what they're asking of these game studios. That, it seemed, and I think that bites them in the end, because if you did play this game 2 years ago, it wasn't good on the iPhone.
Right.
And to then have to wait 2 years for a game you paid $40 for or whatever it was. Yeah, I get it. I mean, I think that's a fair criticism. But it is interesting to me that the hardware is starting to finally catch up to where at least they claimed it would be a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I do think it's like a great showcase for the vapor chamber specifically.
Yes.
I think that the thermal improvements are great. And as somebody who has an iPhone Air which heats up when I write in documents in Notion, I am a little bit jealous.
Yeah, my thought was what I would give to take Apple hardware and have another company make a handheld with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that, because it's great. And, shout out to the vapor chamber for taking care of dissipation. It's just, I cannot shake the feeling that it's always going to be a proof of concept for Apple and never like a serious endeavor, like every couple of years. Now, this year, the thing is Apple games. Have we heard of Apple games after WWDC in any like actually concrete, serious form? Nobody cares. That's the sad truth. Nobody cares. And we have these incredibly powerful devices that in any, like, if Valve had this kind of hardware, it would be incredible what they could do with it.
Yeah.
And instead, we're stuck with Apple releasing 2-year-old games sometimes. And they look, it's wild that you can play Death Stranding or Resident Evil with that performance on a phone, right? It's absolutely wild.
Yeah, being like, it hits 30 frames per second, but no higher. It's like, that's
on
pretty
a phone, on a phone, like,
yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing, but that's all there is to it. Like, the thought, unfortunately, stops there. Like, yeah, it's cool.
It's why I'm so excited, honestly, about the M-Con still. Like, the M-Con, to me, feels like the consolification of the iPhone in a way that I'm really excited about. It's like I have this other device that as soon as I slap my iPhone on it, it becomes a handheld.
Yeah, think about that for a second. We are right on the cusp of getting a Thor and the M-Con. That is quite a combo.
That feels like the sort of like a culmination, like at the end of the first NPC story arc. You know, the M-Con, the ultimate 2-screen device.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so switching gears before we wrap up this week's episode. So I did some research this week about a topic that I then looked in my notes and I saw that Brendon had something similar. So my research was there was this event on Amazon called, what's it called, John? Big Deal Days?
Big Deal Days.
Which is not Amazon Prime Day.
It's basically Amazon saying Prime Days are so popular, we're going to do it 3 times a year now.
Yeah, it's like Black Friday.
Similar.
It's like now in Italy we have Black Friday, like even in the summer. Some retailers do that for whatever reason.
It's like think of it as mini Prime Day, Federico.
Now here's the thing: in this economy, in this capitalist society, all prices are fake. That's my ultimate conclusion. Like all prices are fake. Anyway,
very true.
Did some research on this new wave of Strix Halo based mini PCs. So we talked about Strix Halo in the context of tablets and obviously the GPD Win 5 with the external battery. But there's this new wave of a couple of them are available. In fact, that's where I started on Amazon because one of them was 40% off and I came so close to purchasing it, but I didn't for reasons that I will explain shortly. And some of them are upcoming. So I wanted to mention a few of these. So the one that I was sort of considering on Amazon was the GMK Tech Evo X2. This has been quite positively reviewed on a whole bunch of YouTube channels, including ETA Prime. This is a very compact Strix Halo-based mini PC. A lot of these are primarily advertised as mini PCs for AI workflows because of the Ryzen AI 395 Plus Max. Gosh, that name is terrible. But this is Strix Halo, so we know that you also get incredible gaming performance out of these things. There's the Minis Forum MS-S1 Max that is coming out soon, I think.
These names are terrible.
Yes, and there's hold on because it gets even worse. There's also the B-Link. I believe, Brendon, don't you have a B-Link mini PC?
I do. I have the B-Link SCR8.
Okay, that's a good one. They're doing the GTR 9 Pro. This is basically a Mac Studio. This is an Apple Mac Studio clone.
Looks exactly like a Mac Studio.
It's a
the B-Link I have looks exactly like a Mac Mini, to be clear. This seems to be kind of their MO.
Yeah. So this is the Mac Studio, but Strix Halo. Now, we're going to link in the show notes. There's a couple of reviews of folks testing the performance of these Strix Halo mini PCs, both with Windows. I think I forgot, John, to put the link to the Digital Foundry video. So we got to find that, testing on Windows. And also ETA Prime installed Bazzite, the SteamOS fork on the GMK Tech. This thing is basically a mini PS5 in something that is like half the size of a PS5, and it's a PC. Sure, it has a pretty chunky external power supply, but thanks to Strix Halo, you can basically get a stable 1440p 60 FPS performance with the likes of God of War, Cyberpunk, even with some ray tracing enabled on a mini PC. I think that is absolutely wild that we have now reached this point where mini PCs were like, if you go back to last year when we were discussing mini PCs, like the whole conversation was, it's basically like, what if you could get a Steam Deck, right? That you can use for indie games and some older AAA titles, but you're not getting...
Doing some emulation and that kind of stuff.
But you're not getting anywhere close to the current generation of consoles. And in the span of a year, thanks to Strix Halo, we have moved to, it's basically a PS5, and it's more powerful than an Xbox Series S. And it's smaller in the case of the GMK Tech, and I think the B-Link is going to be even more compact. It's smaller than that, and it's basically a PS5. And if you then consider frame generation and upscaling, you can even play a 4K with some of these games. So you can run at 1440p, upscale to 4K, and you're essentially getting the performance of a PlayStation 5. That is absolutely wild to me. And I thought, well, this GMK Tech one is 40% off, and I'm selling my PS5. What if I, built myself the ultimate SteamOS machine, and installed Bazzite on this? I didn't, because then it all came back to me and the experience that I had with Bazzite. And I did some research. I don't know what's going on with SteamOS. I thought by now official SteamOS would be available on more devices.
Mhm.
It still isn't. And so it was still going to be an expensive purchase. And I thought, well, I'm going to wait a little. I'm going to see what happens, because I don't want to deal with Bazzite again. Then I opened my notes this morning
For this show.
for this show, and I saw Brendon Bigley bails on Bazzite. Nice alliteration there.
Thank you.
The tragic story is the only thing in the document. Please, Brendon.
Yeah. So, okay. Earlier this year, right before we went to CES, I bought the Asus ROG Ally X, ripped it open, put a bigger hard drive in it, split that into, what was it? 2/3 Bazzite, 1/3 Windows. Because I was like, I don't know how much Windows stuff I would want to play, but I'll give it a couple hundred gigabytes at least. And I have been pretty much off to the races, loving Bazzite the whole time. I have been using the ROG Ally X basically as a Steam Deck. It has been great in pretty much every instance. I haven't really run into any issues, with the sole exception, the one thing that became the deal breaker for me. Every time the ROG Ally needed to update in any way, shape, or form, Wi-Fi would just stop working entirely on the device.
Oh,
Yep.
And the developers of Bazzite have said there are some incompatibilities with the specific Linux fork that Bazzite is and the Wi-Fi card that is in the Ally and the Ally X that makes it difficult to get Wi-Fi working. And there are always workarounds, right? Like, I mean, this is, when you're talking about Linux, like, it's the most in-depth community possible in terms of like troubleshooting and whatever. Right. So basically every single time, it has always involved way more work than I thought. It has always involved like half a day of sitting there typing stuff in command line, typing stuff in terminal, like downloading weird stuff, like just trying a bunch of different things until eventually I got Wi-Fi working again. And a couple days ago, Wi-Fi stopped working again. I got a new Windows update and an Armory crate, and there was a new BIOS update and everything, which I think was a little bit older, but I had just like not turned on the Windows side of the Ally X for so long, like it all downloaded at once. Wi-Fi wasn't working on Bazzite anymore, and I tried everything I possibly could. Like literally multiple days of me being like, okay, let's try this, let's try this, let's try this. Nothing worked, and eventually I was like, at what point do I just need to say this is a Windows handheld and I'm trying to force it to do something that it's not supposed to do? Until SteamOS is officially released for the thing, I was like, let me give it a shot. And then I remembered, which you mentioned earlier, Federico, the Xbox full screen experience is technically like in testing now. Like you can, like there are ways to get it. So I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wipe Bazzite. I'm going to get rid of that partition entirely. I'm going to commit to this being a Windows device. I'm going to try to use it as close to a console experience as I possibly can. I'm going to get on the Windows Insider preview build of Windows 11 so I can get the Xbox full screen experience, and we're going to be off to the races. So I started the first half of that process, which involved, again, like way more work than I would have liked it to, because I needed to do a bunch of stuff in command line to get rid of a bunch of like weird partitions that Linux sets up when you have a Linux partition. Anyway, eventually I extended the hard drive out. We're totally good. And I update Windows, of course, which takes like, again, half a day to download like 14 million updates and then get on the Insider preview program and then download this new version and blah, blah, blah. Reset. I watched like 8 movies while it was happening. And I open up Windows and I go to the gaming section of the settings where the full screen experience setting is not there. It just isn't there. And I look online and people, and literally it's so funny. There's a post on the ROG Ally subreddit that's like, here's a guide to how to get the full screen experience working on your Ally or Ally X. And it literally says like, if you follow all these steps and you're lucky, it will show up here. And if not, you're going to have to wait till October 16th when it launches for everybody. So I don't know what to do. I tried everything. There's even this like weird hacky thing that you can do to download it and try it. But I will say I'm now recommitted to using the Ally X as a Windows device for the time being.
Yeah.
I have specifically decided to give Armory Crate a real go because when I first got the Ally X, it was not very good. Armory Crate, for those of you who don't have an Ally, is basically like Asus's software that pops up automatically, like it auto starts into Armory Crate when you start Windows, kind of their version of a full screen console experience.
Yep.
It was not great when I first got my hands on the Ally X. It was not really usable. I ended up just kind of turning it off and then launching Steam into big picture mode when I first started. And then eventually I started using Play Night and having Play Night launch into full screen mode as well, which does look beautiful and is great. The thing is, like, Armory Crate's pretty good now. Like, it's pretty decent. It just pulls in all of my games from all of my sources. It's very easy to launch into like GeForce Now if I want to launch into GeForce Now.
Right.
I'm like pretty happy with it. And I'm interested actually now if the Xbox experience will be as good as, if not better than Armory Crate. What I have seen though, literally, I think it was yesterday, somebody posted a video. I forget who it was. I wish I could find it. If I can, I'll put it in the show notes. But I saw a video yesterday of somebody who had both the Xbox full screen experience and a new, they're like on a developer track for Armory Crate. And it turns out they're just going to integrate Armory Crate into the Xbox full screen experience completely. So what's going to happen is when you're in the Xbox experience, first of all, you're getting all the benefits of that, which means that like Windows is running in a low power mode. So you're going to get some frame rate improvements and a bunch of improvements, you know, in terms of like power consumption and stuff, just through using that. But also, if you press the Xbox button or, you know, whatever button equates to that on your ROG Ally, it'll just pull up the Xbox game bar. And one of the tabs will be Armory Crate with all of the things that you need. So you can change the TDP, and you can change the brightness and your LEDs, and all of that stuff will just happen from in there, which nice. I think is really smart.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because Lenovo was kind of in the same situation with their custom software early on. Yeah. It was really pretty bad. It's improved quite a bit itself too.
Yeah, but I think the key here, to Federico's point, is like Bazzite ended up just not working for me long term, which is my major concern about doing what you're talking about. Yeah. Like I have the B-Link and I'm constantly staring at it being like, should I just throw Bazzite on here and see how it works?
Yeah.
And I'm so worried about the incompatibility between Bazzite and like any of the 50 to 60 off-the-shelf parts that are in this thing, you know, that may not make it work. It's cool that it does on this GMK tech. Like that's very interesting. But, you know, the question between like, okay, it works now, but how long will it work for in a way that feels sustainable and usable long term is you know, concerning to me.
Yeah, it comes down to that balance between fiddliness and actually enjoying your games and the hardware that you have. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which at the core of it, you know, there are different reasons to be in this hobby, but at the core of it for me, it's playing video games. I am fine with fiddling to make the games be better, but also I want to sit down and play games.
But you got to be able to play the games. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So we'll see. Hopefully there's going to be some updates on the official SteamOS front.
Yeah, come on, Valve. Get with it.
I know, right?
I mean, I will say, though, that GMK tech, I'm looking at it. Those prices are pretty good at the moment. It's like an introductory price that they're doing right now. Pretty good prices. Pretty good. Especially if you compare it to the B-Link that's coming out.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Almost exactly the same specs, and the B-Link, I think, is $500 more than the GMK tech is right now.
I would be very tempted if there was official SteamOS on it, but not yet. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think that about does it for this week's regular episode. In NPC XL, John is going to be a Python programmer. I think that's what it's going to be about.
And John's just going to start hissing at us.
It's all about the thermals, guys. It's all about the thermals.
Okay, so we'll talk about whatever that is in NPC XL for our Patreon subscribers. And in the meantime, John, where can people find us on the World Wide Web?
Oh, you can go to wavelengths.online to find Mr. Brendon Bigley. And of course, Federico and I are always over at macstories.net. And all three of us are on social media. Just search for our names. You'll find us right away. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks to all the Patreon members who will be joining us for the post show for XL.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.